Imagine a day where children are guided and nurtured in a way that honors their unique humanness. A day where, instead of being expected to change in order to fit in, children can be met right where they're at. Welcome to Where They're Planted, a podcast for parents and care providers of unique children. Caring for a child with a developmental, emotional, or behavior challenge, a neurodiverse brain, or difficult early life experiences can be confusing and exhausting. On this podcast, we'll help your child flourish and strengthen their roots by helping you not only understand them, but also gain the skills to help them bloom where they're planted. We'll use brain science, nervous system tools, collaborative strategy sessions, and a deep understanding of the developmental process to create a fertile environment around your child in order to nurture their growth. I am your host, Jen Bluske, an occupational therapist with over 25 years of experience and a parent coach. My most closely held title, however, is that of a single mom of 2 thriving adopted kids, so I have walked this walk. I am truly excited to share, teach, and dive into these important topics on each episode.
Welcome back to Where They're Planted. My name is Jen Bluske, and we are going to be having a solo episode today. I'm so excited. I wanted to start by first thanking you guys for listening. I just learned that people are actually listening to these episodes, and I am so honored and really excited and really looking forward to developing some community around this idea of parenting our unique kids and supporting them right where they're planted. And so if you happen to be listening today, if you could do me a favor and go ahead and like and follow the episode. And if you find value in it, and if you know of anybody else parenting or have anybody that you would like to share this with, please go ahead and do so. I would greatly appreciate it. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the idea of rupture and repair. And so this episode idea has been floating around in my brain for some time. I spend a lot of time talking to families about this idea of what to do about meltdowns, right? We've had an episode, I think it was episode maybe 7 or 8, around meltdowns. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into it today and provide some context, maybe connect some dots around why meltdowns are actually some of our powerhouse to creating change. Now, I know I sound like I've sort of lost my mind a little bit because dealing with meltdowns and dysregulation is so challenging as a parent. And, again, I've lived this as a parent as well. But I want to dig into what rupture and repair means and why we care about it, what the parts of it are, and then give you some concrete strategies of what to do, of what repair looks like and why we want to get to repair and what that actually does for that developing nervous system, that developing child. So in talking to parents, when I do all of the initial intakes at our clinic, and I talk to parents and drop-in calls, and I talk to, mom friends. And whenever I hear about, this hard moment that happened with a child, one of my first questions that I often ask a parent is, how did it end? What was the ending of this hard moment like? And the reason I ask that question is because that gives me information and it helps start a conversation about the concept of repair. And so let's start, first of all, as we often do in this podcast, talking about going way back in development and talking about infancy and how we learn in infancy from our caregivers about how to resolve problems. So infants are, pretty simple creatures who are kind of just trying to stay alive and trying to get their needs met, their basic needs met in the world. An infant might be hungry, and so an infant is going to cry. And so there's going to be a rupture there, right? There's going to be a dysregulation. There's going to be a distress that happens in the nervous system. And then the caregiver will come in and will feed the baby, which will give the baby all sorts of signals through a full belly and through touch and through connection that they are okay. They have returned to homeostasis. They have repaired. And so if you think about our infants and, the first, 3 months of life, 6 months of life, how many opportunities there are when things are going well for rupture and repair. An infant might have a wet diaper and parent steps in and changes the diaper and responds to comfort. An infant might be scared by a loud sound. For our parents out there who parented kiddos with really hypersensitive hearing, the vacuum cleaner or the blender turns on when they're a baby and the baby startles, and the parent steps in and soothes the baby, sometimes with some words or with some sounds or with some movement or with some touch, in order to repair. So this cycle starts very, very, very early in life. But then as kids get more independent and a little bit older, we don't think about that sort of rupture and repair cycle in the same way because kids have more autonomy, right? Around the age of 18 months to 2, they have more autonomy, which is then just growing all the way into adulthood. And so the reason we're talking about rupture and repair today in this series that I'm taking you guys through right now is this is one of the ways our kids learn to regulate, which I know sounds sort of counterintuitive. If there's a rupture or a difficulty or a meltdown, how in the world is that helping teach them how to regulate themselves? But in order to regulate, you have to recover from distress. That is how we learn to regulate. And we recover from distress initially as children through a relationship. And so we need the rupture in order to have the opportunity to practice the repair in relationship. It's so interesting. I talk about my own parenting experience and talk about how I've had a lot of opportunity to practice the idea of having to repair from rupture. And for some of our kids that we're parenting, right, our unique kids that might be neurodivergent or might have trauma histories or might have spicy temperaments or might have sensory processing differences or might have ADHD or might have no label at all, but are powerhouses in their own right. We're dealing with rupture a lot, sometimes on the upwards of 5 times a day. And so, as exhausting as sometimes it is as a parent, I also can really honor how vital repair is in order to help A, foster a healthy, solid relationship, and B, help continue to give us skills of how to come back from that shaky, dysregulated place, how to return to a stable, regulated state. And so I want to take a minute as we're talking about rupture and repair to just be really specific. Let's just define for a second what rupture means and what rupture looks like in a relationship. And, because this is a parenting podcast, I'm speaking about rupture and parenting, but right, there's rupture in all relationship. We're not in relationship, truly in relationship, until we've had some cycles of rupture and repair. The idea that we can trust the other person to go through the hard stuff and come through the other side of it is what fosters healthy relationship. And so the idea of rupture, what does that look like? So the obvious rupture that happens with our kids is meltdowns, is that dysregulation. This is the, you said no, and I'm kicking and hitting and throwing and biting and causing distress for the whole household. But there's also other forms of rupture that I think, in the context of really digging deep into your parent-child relationship and how our kids are ticking, I think it's important to look a little bit deeper at other kinds of rupture that we might be seeing, because sometimes the most obvious rupture, the meltdowns, aren't actually the place we start. And so another idea of what rupture is could be when our child isn't able to follow a direction, right? So we give them a direction and they're not able to follow through with what we ask. And we say, gosh, I just need you to get your shoes on and get out the door. Okay, that's a rupture. in the relationship. And again, I'm not saying that we should never have rupture. Rupture is necessary and important and healthy in relationship. It might be that the child is ignoring us, right? We might say something. This is like a classic one in my house where I might be like, okay, I need you to take out the garbage today. And nobody takes out the garbage. Well, that creates a rupture for me, right? So ignoring might be a place of rupture. Another place of rupture that I really like to think about is us as parents not being able to listen to our child for maybe the 100th time when they tell us their story about their video game that they're very excited about, or the toy that they want, or maybe the friend drama that's happening at school. And the child might perceive that as a rupture. Well, see, mom or dad or caretaker, they don't really care. They're not able to listen to me. They can't even hear me. And so sometimes that creates a little bit of a rupture. And that also happens right in our adult relationships. This isn't unlike our adult relationships. I'm just keeping it to our kids at this point. And another idea that when I think about rupture, and I see it all of the time in my work and also in my parenting world of my own kids, is us saying, just give me one more minute for, maybe the 200th time while the child is trying to show us something or ask us for help, right? Because we are busy. We're trying to get stuff done. And we might be saying, okay, one more minute. I'll get to it. One more minute. Or I just need to get this done. One more minute. And never circling back in order to quote unquote meet the need of the child. That also is tagged in the brain as a rupture. So really rupture is disconnection. It's disconnection from co-regulated relationship where I am okay and you are okay and we are okay together is what rupture means. As I go through these examples, and if you're thinking through like your days with your children, I'm assuming that there's a plethora of opportunities to practice repair after rupture because rupture happens a lot. That's not a bad thing. It's okay for rupture to happen a lot. It's really, again, as I ask the parents when I talk to them, it's like, how does it end? What happens when it's over? What happens in order to move out of it or to move through it? Now, I want to take a minute to just think through what happens if there's no repair. Okay. And we'll get into repair. And, I feel like repair is a tricky one because I think in our society and in our culture to some extent, and I think it's shifting a little bit, but I know like in the generation I was raised in, I have teenagers, repair really meant apology. Repair really meant reparation in some way. And while I'm not saying that that's never gonna happen as part of a repair, it's not the definition of repair. What repair is coming back into connection. Repair is coming back into I'm okay and you're okay and we are okay together. And so what happens so I was actually interesting. I was talking to some parents of a sort of middle-aged boy who is going through a lot of cycles of rupture, a lot of cycles of rupture every single day, a lot of distress, probably coming from some sensory processing differences. And at this point, some relational patterns that really, really are creating just sort of this sense of dysregulation for him. And I said to them, how does it end? And it took them a minute. It took them aback, which isn't uncommon for them when I asked this to parents. And they said, the way it ends best is if I distract him into something else. And I said, well, tell me more. And they said, well, he might be really, really, really upset around losing screen or not having screen time or the screen being shut off or having to come inside from playing. And if I am able to find a funny thing to play with, or if I'm able to really distract him, then we're able to move on. And as I really thought about that, I realized that this little boy and this family unit doesn't have a strategy for repair. And so what happens when there's no repair? What happens when there's this big meltdown, this big rupture in relationship, and then it just moves on, is this sense of There's never any closure. There's never any coming back together. It's just life moves on, and I couldn't make sense of what just happened. It's the making sense of that's really important. And so when there isn't repair, sometimes we feel real disconnection from our relationship. And for a parent-child relationship, we know this from our attachment podcast, that ability to have connection and predictability and the showing up is what forms the healthy attachment, which then forms the healthy attachment with ourselves. And so you see how these little nuggets, this rupture and repair idea, sort of build on larger concepts of how we move into functioning, regulated, emotionally attuned adults. And so another thing that happens when there isn't any repair, when we have these ruptures, which we've described, but there's no settling back in, is a lot of times there's a sense of shame, not only on the parent's part, but on the child's part of, see, it happened again and my parent doesn't like me. Or see, it happens again and it's all my fault. Or see, it happened again and I didn't make my parent happy. Which then sometimes sort of builds into this self-fulfilling prophecy of the only way I know how to get connection from another person or my parent is through rupture. But it's not in a way that's coming into connection in a healthy way. It's sort of a way of reflecting attention. And so what we want to think about in that is how else can we support the child to be seen in that moment? And then the other thing that when we're not able to repair after a rupture, after a difficult relational moment, is it creates a lack of relational safety. And so what I mean by relational safety is I know I'm inherently safe. And I'm not just talking physically safe here. I'm talking emotionally safe. I'm talking that I can kind of predict what's going to happen in relationship. I'm not inherently relationally safe because we never move all the way through the cycle back into connection. So I don't know when I'm going to get connection again, especially if I'm a really dysregulated child because of all of the things that make me unique, into how children understand safety in their own bodies, that they know they can rely on themselves to make good choices or to make decisions that feel right for them, all the way from something as simple as, is this playground equipment short enough for me to jump off of, all the way up to the big understanding our internal sense of safety of, I'm at a high school party and is this something that makes sense for me or not, right? All of those decision points that we have to sit in ourselves and really feel what feels right. Is that gut sense? Is that interoceptive sense? That all boils back to, it starts with relational safety. It's interesting because some of the ways that we learn how to develop regulation is through the reflection of how our parents see us. This is being seen. And when children know their experience is seen and they just have to worry about their experience as opposed to somebody else's, is when we start to really, really, really see that internal sense of safety kick on. Now, when I'm talking about repair, something that's really important to consider, because we are speaking in this moment in the idea of parenting, is that it is always the parent's job to see and soothe their child. It is never the child's job to see and soothe us as adults. I'm going to say that again. It's always the parent's job in parenting to see and soothe their child, because their child is still at a developmental stage of not having that fully online yet. Remember, it's not online until about the age of 25. It is never the child's job to see and soothe us. What that means is that it is our job as parents to show up in the regulated, authentic way for our child. And if we're not in a regulated state, to have that be ours. It's not something our child did to us. Now, this leads to a whole nother podcast, which I think I'm actually going to do next, which is we never learned this as kids ourselves. Again, right? In the generation that I grew up in, anybody with kids probably age 5 or up. I think kids 5 or down, maybe you guys fell into a little bit of a different generational shift. You might have more of this online, but we didn't learn how to regulate ourselves in that way. And so now we're doing twice the work, right? We're learning this maybe sometimes for the first time for ourselves, while also trying to parent kids in this way. And so I see you, how hard this is. And we just take baby steps. We're just going to take it baby step after baby step after baby step and make small, subtle shifts in order to create the big change. Now, having said that about repair, okay, what is repair? How are we going to repair? What does that look like? Again, the idea of setting a boundary or a consequence or something like that is the topic of a whole nother podcast. And sometimes after the fact, you may, as a parent, decide that, oh man, you know what? I'm seeing that you're not really quite ready yet to go to that sleepover without some support. And so right now we're not going to go to sleepovers yet. Or, oh, buddy, I can see that on your phone, you're not moderating what content you're looking at. So I'm going to need to put some parameters on that for you to make sure that you're staying safe. Or for an even younger one, ooh, I see that when you're playing with this toy with your sister, you guys are getting really out of control and you're starting to hit each other. And so here's how I'm going to structure that play opportunity so everybody stays safe. So you see how that's a whole nother podcast, and we can set boundaries. We should be setting boundaries as parents. But when we're talking about rupture and repair is the coming back into connection. It's the helping the child answer the question of, am I seen? Am I safe? And am I worthy of an autonomous effect on this world? We want our kids to grow up into autonomous adults who are able to make choices from that internal place of knowing, and not what they think other people want of them or respond based on what somebody else is doing. We want them to make their own independent choices. And in that, the opportunity for repair helps them reflect what just happened so that they have that internal sense of, oh, I see what happened. I'm okay. We're okay. And yeah, I'm worthy of having a thought or an opinion, maybe in a more regulated way, maybe in a way that's somewhat higher level. That's what kids are learning. So, how do we repair? What does that look like? There's so many ways. The beautiful thing about repair is it can be incredibly nuanced. There's no you must fill in the blank. Repair isn't bribing, it's not ignoring, it's not forcing joy, it's not making the sad go away, it's not apologizing, it's not retribution. But what it is it's coming back to connection, honoring actually what just happened, and then re-regulating our nervous systems together. So we'll use an example of a big meltdown, a big physical meltdown, because that's, a pretty obvious one that might happen in your household. I know it happened a lot when my kids were little, and mine. It might be that as we do the containment strategies to support the meltdown, which is in another podcast, as the child starts to settle, it might be non-verbally just sitting on the floor next to the child and taking some deep breaths. They might crawl into your lap. They might start a little game, which you're going to play the little game with you, a little back and forth game. It might be a throw a pillow back and forth. It might be you handing them a snack or a drink of water. It might be you saying, whew, that was hard. You were really mad. And that might be it. That might be enough of a repair for your child. It's you opening back up the connection and helping them move forward. Okay, let's go get your jammies on. Okay, come on out, let's get your Legos, let's play some Legos. It might be, I'm gonna pick up this room. That was hard, we're gonna move on. Do you see how that pulls back down into safety and connection? You might have a consistent sentence or a consistent mantra that you say with your child, especially if you're going through a lot of reps of rupture and repair every day. It might be, I've got you, kiddo. I've got you. Or, some parents, I love you to the moon and back, right? That brings that brain back into, oh, yep, we're still connected. We're still here. It might be through sharing a moment of shared joy together. Now, this isn't a forced, I'm going to make you happy, but it might be you just so happen to sit down and play the favorite song together and just sit with the joy. Let everybody settle into safety. It might be that you find some success in an activity together. It might be that you guys are able to do something that feels really good to both. Like, we're going to make some cookies. We're going to build that little set of Legos. We might be doing a craft together that creates some success. It might be honoring that you're still needing to regulate yourself as a parent. And this one's tricky because we're all human. And I don't know about you all, if you've got kiddos who have big physical meltdowns, but when I was going through this as a parent and my child would settle finally physically, and I didn't have to guard myself from being physically hurt anymore after, I don't know, sometimes 30, 45 minutes, I wasn't in a really great state to want to snuggle in. And my child needed that more than anything because of the significant attachment questions that were going on for them. And so sometimes I would have to say something like, wow, oh, I'm going to snuggle you into your bed. I'm going to go get a drink of water. I'll be right back. And then I would go out and cry or scream in a pillow or whatever I needed in order to sort of get myself together enough to go back in and create connection for my child. And so honoring where you're at is important. Sometimes you're going to cry, right, during these ruptures. I was just talking to a parent about this the other day. It's okay to say, Mommy's feeling sad, or Dad's feeling frustrated right now. I can handle it. I see you. Mommy can handle it. I'm feeling sad and I'll find a way I'll be okay. But honoring that you're also having an experience that you're regulating through, if that's real for you, is more functional and more useful than hiding it, because kids see right through that. Sometimes you're gonna have to regulate yourself for a minute. You might have to move on with the day and create repair way later in the day. I know that with my daughter, this often happens. Sometimes because the rupture can feel so intense for us both, we sometimes have to take space, and that space might be for hours. Now, she's a little bit older, right? A younger child, we couldn't necessarily do this with in the same way. But knowing that I will always circle back and create that repair for her, with her, and she now is old enough to do it with me as well later on when both of our systems are more regulated. So repair doesn't have to happen immediately after. Repair just needs to be coming back into connection and safety when both nervous systems are in a place to be able to do it. And again, if you're the parent, it's when your nervous system is able to do it because your child isn't online and ready to do it yet always. Within repair, I also really think about the curiosity about what happened. Really, dysregulation is a means of creating curiosity about what's going on in the system and what feels unsafe. I mean, right? That's what dysregulation is. Like, something's off here. Something's not right. And sometimes within the repair, we can really dig into curiosity. Whoa, you were really, really upset. I saw you get so mad when I said XYZ. And sometimes our kids are able to actually give us some cues. Yeah, it was too loud at play practice and I just needed to get out of there and that teacher wasn't being nice to me. Oh, see, and that's why you ran right out of the room and hid under the desk. That's being seen and that's repairing. Oh, must have felt hard. I'm so sorry. Once you repair, then the opportunities are endless for problem solving and change. But we can't jump into problem solving and change until we have repair and relational safety. And so that's something we do as parents a lot is we jump right into problem solving, but we forgot that the child's nervous system is still in an unsafe space. And so all of that problem solving, either goes in one ear and out the other because their frontal lobe isn't on, or it creates that sense of shame. See, I can never do anything right. See, I should have known just to ask for a break. Of course, they knew to ask for a break, but we can't access those things when we're in a fight flight state or a freeze state. So, what all of this does, this rupture and repair, rupture and repair, rupture and repair over and over again, is it actually creates our strong attachment bonds. It creates our children's ability to understand their own internal regulation state and how to move through dysregulation. We all are humans are sometimes dysregulated. And our goal is to be able to move through the state into something that is more functional and through something that is more matched and safer in our own body in order to ask for what we need, get our needs met in the world. In the end, we're all just trying to be okay, right? Our kids are trying to be okay. We're trying to be okay. And we just can't avoid these ruptures. And so by helping our kids learn that there is a way through this, that there is a way to honor what happened, helps everybody know that we can be okay. We can be okay in our world. That in the repair is the good stuff. So I want to give some takeaways around, I just gave you a lot of content and a lot of things to think about. And I want to think about for you all now, if you're like, whoa, where do I start? I'm going through meltdown after meltdown after meltdown, or going through disconnection after disconnection all day long. I want you just to pause and think about, where are you already finding repair with your child? Or alternatively, where are you already finding just little moments of joy, just little moments of connection point with your child? Those are the things to highlight this week. And what I mean by highlight is just notice and sort of give yourself a pat on the back, right? We're going to reinforce that good stuff. I also want you to think about this week, where are the points of dysregulation in your nervous system that might be holding you back from the repair? We're going to likely, as I've alluded to, spend our next episode talking about parent regulation a little bit more because it's so vital. And again, we don't often think about helping our unique kids through our own nervous system. And so it deserves its own time. But I want you to think about, where are those points of dysregulation? Like, what are the things you're really getting stuck on? Is it when you get hit by your child? Or is it when they scream, I hate you, mom, right? Like, where are those points and what's happening for your body in those moments, so that we can really dig into those to create the change. And then the last thing is, what are the ways you can support your child to be seen in the rupture, to help them make sense of the rupture? Okay. So how do we see them in the moment of the rupture? Or are we seeing them? Or are we just seeing our own storyline? So this is a spoiler alert. I've alluded to my daughter, and I'm very, very excited to bring her on in the next few episodes here as a special guest to try to help bring some of this into real life, right? We talk about parents and how it affects kids. Well, I want you to be able to hear from a kid and how it affects kids, when it goes well and when it doesn't. It is not always going to go well. There are moments, right? Like I said, there are lots of opportunity for rupture and repair every single day. No matter how much you're really focusing on this stuff and working on it, we're an imperfect species, right? Nothing is ever going to go quite as planned. And I think that that's part of what makes it exciting, and part of what makes it real. So I'm excited for that to happen in the coming weeks, to sort of try to land some of this regulation, rupture, and repair stuff with you all. I wanted to say that if you are looking for more, like a more specific how to support your child, please, please, please feel free to check out our parent coaching program at Thriving Parents Collective. Our Thriving Parents Collective online parenting course is set up to help you dig really deep into these concepts and hold space for what's working and then what's not working in your responses with your children. In our online course, we take you through our specific work and a stepwise approach that places a heavy focus on regulation and attachment in order to build the connections and changes in behavior from the inside out. So our online course is nice because it has over 5 hours of video laid out in a systematic way to help build on concepts, right? A lot of parents are like, where do I start? I've read all the books. I've tried all the things. What we've tried to do in this course is really take it from the beginning and then systematically just build on the skills in the way that the brain develops so that you can walk away with sports and strategies. There's also over 50 pages of workbook prompts, and as you go through the content, as you fill out the workbook prompts, you're creating the strategies for you and your kids. You can use this online course as a template to talk with your partner, your parenting partner, about views and help find the common language. I know that's something that comes up a lot in our intakes is like, we have 2 different parenting styles and we're not sure which one to use when. It helps create that common language. You're also able then to join our private Facebook group where you can ask questions and get answers and prompts directly from us, the parent coaches. And you can sign up for discounted virtual one-on-one drop-in sessions to help you work through any of those sticking points that you're running into in your online course. In addition, if you're ready to dive a little bit deeper, you're welcome to check out our one-on-one virtual parent coaching series where our parent coaches meet with you consistently to help hold that space for you to be able to focus on you as a parent. We will walk you through the learning while getting to know your child and your family in order to provide some really individualized strategies. Rupture and repair is a big topic and one that opens up so many questions for future episodes. I'm really excited to start providing my favorite types of episodes, which are Q&As, where I get to answer questions that you have in your parenting. If you're interested in asking a question that I review on a future episode, see the link in the show notes. I am looking forward to hearing from you and walking along with you in this parenting roller coaster. All right, I think we're going to leave it here for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. Bye-bye.
Where They're Planted is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Jen Bluske. Music is by Gaston Reen and Pod 5. Thank you for loving your child right where they're planted.